Hello, America. Welcome back to VetSum. Brian Lynch here with Chris Pollitzer. He's the co-founder and president of Noble Team AI. But today we're going to talk about his role as Chief Strategy Officer for Honor and Remember. Chris is a former Master Sergeant in your United States Army. We're going to talk about the Honor and Remember Foundation, which is coming up on 20 years old and is doing some amazing things for Americans and families across the country. Chris, it is an honor to have you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Brian, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation.
So Honor and Remember is getting a lot of press these days. We're recording this in very early June of 2025, and the NHL playoffs are going on. Honor and Remember is all over the boards. Tell us about the organization and why you're involved.
So the organization, like you said, is coming up on 20 years old. On December 29th, 2005, Corporal George Anthony Lutz II was killed in action by a sniper's bullet in Fallujah, Iraq. I was his team leader during that time frame, and his father, after the fact, went through a grieving process. And through his grieving process, he decided he wanted to go talk to other families and just kind of relate and try to understand the death and everything that was going on internally with him and as a Gold Star family, right? So he got in a camper and he literally drove across the country and went and talked to family after family after family after family. And he did that for months. And during the course of that, what he realized through conversation was that the only thing that these family members actually ever wanted was to know that their service members' loss was not going to be in vain and would never be forgotten. So, and that took George to a point where he had to think to himself, how do you do that? And then he's like, a flag. It's a tangible symbol that can be flown on a flagpole, and people can walk out and look up and say, okay, my country remembers that the loss wasn't done in vain. So in 2007, George founded Honor and Remember Inc. And since then, he's been on a mission to have this flag nationally established, so we can present personalized flags to Gold Star families. And you can see a personalized flag in the background. That's his son's name underneath that flag. And again, I was with him. So since then, the organization's been on a growth trajectory for a very long time. Right now, the flag is recognized as the official symbol of remembrance in 28 states. We have the 29th state. Looking like it's getting ready to happen. It's passed both the House and the Senate in New Hampshire, just waiting for governor's signature. So once the governor signs off on that, we have 29 states that have officially adopted the flag. And throughout the course of this, we were able to, George was able to do a lot of this. He met some wonderful people. In the course of that, he met he's met the NASCAR, the Norwegian Cruise Line, the NHL. All of these organizations have seen the value in Honor and Remember. So the president of NASCAR and the president of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, David Herrera and Steve O'Donnell from NASCAR, they sit on our board. So we have a very influential board that's very capable. Through their relationships, we've been able to kind of maximize and continue to expand our breadth into corporate America, right? And that's part of our 2026 strategy, is really getting into corporate America and really getting the flag established inside of corporate America from like a corporate grassroots level, if that makes sense.
It makes
so that's kind of where
sense.
we're at today.
Yeah. And right on the heels of Memorial Day, I'm sure there's been a lot of success. Like I said, throughout the NHL playoffs, we've been seeing the Honor and Remember logo quite prominently displayed on the boards. How did that relationship come together, and what are you doing with it to expand throughout the NHL and other pro sports franchises?
So touch on a little bit, and I'll jump into the National Hockey League in a second. But back in Memorial Day weekend, the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte with NASCAR. So NASCAR has adopted us. We are one of two official impact partners with NASCAR now. We're the first two in their new program. They announced this earlier this year. Now we've been partners, in with NASCAR for years now. But now it's kind of official. They've brought us into the fold, and we're grateful to be there. But on Memorial Day weekend, for the last few years, they have a 6,500 square foot Honor and Remember flag that we unveiled during a moment of silence. And this year they did it mid-race, right? So they ran half of the race, so 300 laps, and then they stopped the race, and then the entire stadium got quiet for a moment of silence.
I saw that.
And we displayed the flag.
It's brilliant.
So that's where, and this is pivotal, is because of NASCAR. That's where George met David Herrera. David Herrera is the president of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, and he's also a former 82nd Airborne 82nd paratrooper. So he just saw something in George that I think everybody sees when they meet him, just a visionary father that is trying to do something impactful for America. And he really brought him into the fold. Norwegian and the NHL have some very close advertising ties and corporate partnerships going on. So those introductions were made, and then that allowed us to begin having talks with the NHL, and the NHL worked with us to get that advertisement on those boards, right, during the Stanley Cup playoffs, and also for the full run during the Stanley Cup itself.
Right.
And again,
That's
we're
rather
grateful.
Premier advertising space if people don't understand.
Just slightly. Just slightly. We're probably talking millions of dollars in free advertising.
Yeah, but it could not be, that space could not be better utilized, in my opinion, regardless of what the cost is. I think it's brilliant to see it. I know you've got some great support with the Panthers. Their owner is a former Army officer, but to see that backing at NCL and NASCAR, I watched the NASCAR event. That was heavy, man. That was heavy. I mean, that was impressive to see that they stopped an event. Usually that stuff is at the beginning of the game. There's a moment of silence for everybody but to have a race halted and to make it that memorable at maximum attendance, max eyeballs internationally, super impressive.
And then having all the teams actually fully involved. And I don't know, as they were kind of panning along the walls, the teams were all standing up on the walls, holding American flags and honor and remember flags.
Right.
So like NASCAR has embraced the honor and remember flag, and their fan base has really started to embrace it as well.
Right. So tell us about Tony Lutz, the impetus for all of this, and his dad, of course, with his contacts and his tenacity to grow the organization. Why are we doing this?
So Tony was an amazing man. I first met Tony in 2003. So I reclassified into psychological operations starting in the beginning of 2004. It's about the same time that Tony was joining the Army and going through. So as I was going through, there wasn't an NCO pipeline for PSYOP at that time. And so I was going through a reclassification program with the basic trainees and AIT students that were coming in, and that's when I first initially met Tony, and I was actually his team leader during that time. So while we were in the schoolhouse that entire time, I was his team leader. And then when we got done with school, we went to the unit, and then we deployed to Katrina relief efforts in 2005. That was our first thing that we did together. I remember he was my driver, and I remember as we were driving through the flooded streets of New Orleans, we had to buy Tony some hip waders because the water was, or not hip waders, but chest waders, because the water was so deep that was coming into the vehicle. Right? Yeah. So we were literally driving. I want to say the water was probably sitting in about mid-chest level, just barely getting ready to go over the chest waders. That's how deep it was as we were looking for people. And we actually found, just a quick funny story, we actually found two older women that had not been found for almost 2 weeks, and being able to find them, and we gave them an Iridium cell phone so they could call their family and let them know. And crazy enough, one of the ladies called their daughter, and her daughter was actually at the funeral home planning her funeral. Wow. Because they had not heard from her in 2 weeks. Wow. So that was a good feel-good story that Tony and I got to share. And then we deployed to Iraq. We were only there for a few months before he was tragically killed.
And had you known George yet, or did you meet George after?
No, I didn't. I had not met George yet. I had met his, I'd obviously met his wife and his children. He had just had a newborn, Ava, and then he had his son Tony. Mm-hmm. And so we, sorry, it's all
right, man. Take your time.
Can you repeat the question? Just
George, meeting George after.
Oh, yeah.
After...
So right before we came home in July of 2006, 3 days before we came home, we lost another member of our company, a good friend of mine named Michael Dickinson. And because it happened 3 days before we were coming home, we actually made it home for the memorial service. That's the first day that I ever met George. Mm-hmm. And that's the first time that he ever looked at me and goes, "You and I will always share something unique." And that uniqueness is, I was there when he came in and you were there when he went. So that kind of hit me hard. And it took me a long time to get to a point where I could help George with this mission. I helped him off and on throughout the course of it. And then in 2018, after I retired, I started taking a little more, or just before I retired, I helped him kind of complete America's Run for the Fallen, where we ran from NTC in Fort Irwin, California, to Arlington National Cemetery and honored over 6,000 names that had died during the global war of terrorism. So I helped kind of set up. I was working in DC at the time, and I kind of helped set up the endpoint, the guest speaker there, all of that access.
And for those that don't know, that's in the Mojave Desert in California. That's not a 5K. It's about probably 2,600 miles, if I'm not mistaken, thereabouts, end to end.
It was a long run, but we got it done. It took a few months, and it created a lot of awareness, got a lot of attention.
Right.
And it's just, those runs have really helped with the awareness of honor and remember.
Yeah.
But it's also, that's the tactical, kind of grassroots movement stuff that we're working on. And now we're just at that level where it's time to, we need a little more than grassroots, and we're really working towards that national presence, and we're really working towards that national adoption of the honor and remember flag.
Right. Right. Does Honor Remember work at all with Woody Williams Foundation? We lost Woody a couple years ago. He was on a national campaign, and the foundation continues his work to put a monument in every city across America that honors Gold Star families and the men and women that have sacrificed and given that last full measure. Have you guys ever connected with them?
I don't know from my empirical knowledge with the organization. George has talked to thousands and thousands of people, so there's a good chance that he has talked to them, but I can't say holistically that we have.
Yeah, we're going to get you connected. I met Woody when he was here a couple of years ago, and they were just here just prior to Memorial Day. The Miami Military Museum dedicated a new monument, and Woody's family was here to make sure that was done.
That's amazing.
And set up. The interesting part is from the Space Coast down to Miami is the greatest concentration of Gold Star families in America. You probably knew that.
Really?
Yeah, but there was another statistic that Woody gave us when he was here, poking us in the chest. He's like 5'2", and he's like, "You need to make sure this happens." And he was I'll tell you, he was a force of nature, Medal of Honor winner from Iwo Jima, and just an impressive guy to talk to, and driven. It sounds very much like what George is doing, driven to make it happen. Obviously, he's had a tremendous impact on the lives of people all over the country, and he's lucky to have you, Chris, because this is a tough gig. I know Tony's in your heart every day, but he's alive and well in the spirit of everybody that's making this happen. What you have accomplished is no small feat. It is difficult to, trust me, I'm doing it right now. It's difficult to grow a nonprofit. It's difficult to get people to care, but once you get there and you have some strong support, particularly in the corporate world, you're going to do well. You mentioned a couple of states that are not there yet. Let's talk about them and how we get them there. Who do we not have yet?
So I don't have a holistic list in front of me. Please excuse me. And I don't want to necessarily call any individual state out right now. But how do we get them there?
We don't have a problem doing that. I'd love to help you get there. Maybe we can talk offline. But is Florida on board?
Florida is 100% on board. But most of your southern and midwestern states are definitely on board. We're slowly getting the New England coastline as well.
Good.
So things are coming on board, right? But how do we get there? It's through education and through awareness, right? And through some of those community activations. And honestly, it takes an army to make the noise that it takes to get a flag nationally adopted, right? We veterans know better of anything that, when you work as a group, you can holistically achieve greatness, right? So just activating, I think, the veteran network and the awareness of what honor and remember is, I think it could kind of, help give people a tangible thing to work towards if they're in their communities and they want to volunteer. We have ambassador programs, have sponsorship opportunities, run opportunities, volunteer opportunities at events. There's all kinds of opportunities to help support with either awareness or sponsorship or donation or anything with honor and remember. And we're always willing to have those conversations, especially with the veteran community, because we know what this means. We actually know what the weight of this flag means.
Right. Indeed. Talk about some of your events, Chris, because I know we're going to put your URL up and a QR code so that everybody can go right to your site and make the donations. How specifically, you talked about the NHL, Coca-Cola 600. What other events is Honor and Remember a part of? I told you about our event coming up in December. What else do you do for that community impact outreach that we want people to know about?
So right now we have each of our states that have adopted, the ones that have state directors and a full team kind of behind them. They do annual runs, so being able to take part in those state runs. So that's an event type. Then at the end of the year, we do what we call the Gold Star Family Evening. It's an end of the year kind of wrap up where we invite all of the Gold Star families that we've touched, right, and invite them to a formal dinner, where an event where we recognize them, and it's just to bring them together. We're looking at kind of shifting that model up for America's 250th, right?
Indeed.
We've got some pretty big plans for 250. We're
Nice.
working with some really big sponsors for that as well.
Excellent.
So, and trying to do something different, but we think it's going to be something great, something unifying that the country could use right now.
Right. Indeed. I'm right there with you. So what about at the tactical level? Do you get involved with families? Because and I know people understand it, that, men and women, and I love what it says in your website about every military service member that is killed while on duty, whether it's, combat related or not. So we do lose men and women, not frequently, but there are training accidents. There are other things going on around the world that are not in quote unquote combat zones or combat AOs. How do you work that at the tactical level? Is it the typical Red Cross notification thing? Do you have a separate network that's letting you know this? Do you have some help from the Pentagon? How does that work for you?
So we're actively attached to the Pentagon. Keeps a list, right? So when we are notified every time that there's a DoD casualty, and that list is there. So when it comes in, we'll try and attempt outreach, right? Not every family wants to be talked to, right? Some just want privacy. Some, they just want to keep to themselves, and others are, very, very grateful for having the flag. So it's just about that initial outreach, and we utilize that list from the Pentagon to really kind of maximize, how we outreach. So we have 4 kind of major pillars, right? It's establish, educate, comfort, and present. So what you're talking about with those Gold Star families is the comfort in the presenting. So it's presenting the personalized flag, and then providing a community of support, right? That can help take care of them, when they're going through things.
Right. Because there is a tremendous amount of support in that community. I've met several Gold Star families. We have Georgie Krell, probably one of the most famous Gold Star mothers down. She's down here in Miami with us. Miami VA is named after her son. Bruce Carter was presented with the Medal of Honor for his service in Vietnam. He was killed, I want to say, almost 60 years ago in the late 60s, and she's been very active with the Gold Star community. There's an event that happens every year, very similar to what you're talking about. General Mike Myatt, former Marine general, I'm not sure if he's still with us. He used to run an event at the Marine Memorial Hotel in San Francisco. And what they would bring in Gold Star families I think they started out just doing Marines, but I think they work with other families as well. And what they do is they get together at the hotel and they do a very private, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like a display kind of, I don't want to call it like a conference or anything, but each family has a table that they set up, and the families get together and talk about the service member, which is remarkable. I mean, it's kept very intimate. I don't think the press is allowed to come in, and God bless General Myatt for putting it together. But it sounds very similar to what you're talking about there, about bringing the families together and giving them the opportunity to
connect and embrace,
and heal and just share stories, I guess, because it's even with Georgie lost her son in the late 60s. She's still, to this day, she's 94, I think. Now, it still gets emotional about it, because it was her child.
It's something that never goes away, right? That'll live with you forever.
Right.
And I personally have not lost a child, and I'm thankful for that. But having been there, gone through that, it hits me a lot differently than it probably does of most.
Yeah. I lost one Marine after Desert Storm. It was a peacetime scenario, and it was brutal. I had to hand the flag to his mother. It was the worst day of my life. Something that needed to be done, of course, because you want to honor the family and everything else, but it's hard. There's a deep sense of responsibility and guilt that goes with it. But it's, I guess, in a way, it's what the family kind of needs. We've stayed in touch with them, and over the years, and it does help. To your point, is that you need to talk about it. You need to get it out and talk about it, and do what you're doing now with George to make sure that this happens. Tell us about some of the reactions, hopefully mostly positive, but what do the families say to you at the tactical level? I guess it's kind of impersonal. Maybe it's not. I don't mean to insinuate that it's impersonal at the state level, but when you approach these families, because you mentioned a lot of them are just looking for recognition of their son or daughter. What are some of the things that they say to you?
So first and foremost, we're generally met with a lot of tears during the flag presentations, right? Anybody that goes to a flag presentation, you can automatically feel the weight of it. You see, so the flag comes in a folded up. See how it's kind of, so you got the American flag, right? It's in a triangle. The Honor Remember flag, when it's presented, starts as a triangle. Right, and then it's unveiled that way. George has a very particular way that it's unveiled. It looks it's very professional. The way that he's had it done. I think the group of people I've seen do it is actually I believe it was the Virginia State Troopers that did it. It was beautiful.
Right.
But so when that flag is opened up and the families see the flag, they see their service members' name on the flag, right? It's just, for them, it's automatic tears. And then after that, it's thanks, it's gratefulness, it's thank you for remembering. Those are the words we hear a lot. Thank you for remembering. And it's very, and I've done a few flag presentations myself, and those are very, very emotional moments for me. And being with those families, it's something that feels good, because you're helping bring, I don't know if closure is the right word, or you're helping bring a sense of peace to something that doesn't necessarily ever have peace to it.
Right. Indeed. And you're recognizing the loss with a dignified statement. And again, I don't think that's the right word either, but it's acknowledgement, which is important, especially for the families. Christy, is it only fatalities that occur now? Do you, like, if a family calls you and says, I lost my son 2 years ago and nobody really cared about it, do you honor that request? So
since 1776, almost 1.4 million service members have given their lives to this country. We honor and remember every single one of them. So if a family from Vietnam comes, we honor them. If a family from World War I comes, we honor them. If a family from World War II, we honor them.
Excellent. So it's okay then if we tell our viewers here that if they have lost a service member ever and they did not get any recognition, or they're just like to have a flag in remembrance, they can contact you.
Yeah, so we have, you go to the website and then there's a request a flag section, and so the way the flags work is they run off of sponsorships. And we get people to sponsor them. Each flag runs about $500 for the personalized, because they're hand sewn, very well executed. And so going to the site, so they request the flag, and we currently have about 10. I don't know the exact number off my head right now, but it's a little over 200 flags waiting for sponsorship now. And as money comes in, we get those made and we get them issued out through presentations. And some families don't want the ceremony or anything like that. They just want a very quiet, private thing. And then other families want to have a big thing for their family and friends. So I've done both. I've done one at a very large veteran event with a nonprofit that I work closely with called Brothers Keepers Veteran Foundation. Mm-hmm. And I've also done a very smaller, intimate family friends gathering at a veteran memorial in Tampa.
Right.
So it kind of goes, both ends of the spectrum with how the families want to do it. And then there's others that just want to do it inside of their home, right? Because they don't want to make a big spectacle out of their child's loss.
Right. Indeed. And I'm assuming you're nationwide. Do you ever get any calls internationally?
So I know George actually traveled to the Ukraine a while ago. It's been a few years since he did that. We don't have a lot of international outreach right now. I don't know if that'll ever be a future initiative yet, but I'm not, once we're working on establishing it in America right now. And I think after we get to that, maybe international is something that could be possible. We don't know.
Indeed. So what's the best thing that we can tell people that are watching now and looking? Is it funding? Is that what the organization needs the most? Is it corporate contacts? What do you think?
So we need three things right now. We need funding, we need corporate contacts, and we also need legislative support. And we have a current active bill in Congress. It's 1363, or 1363, the Honor and Remember Recognition Flag Act. And we need people to contact their state legislators and ask them if they are supporting the bill. And if they're not supporting the bill, why are they not supporting the bill? Because again, this is probably the one thing in America right now that's not partisan. This traverses party lines. And if your congressmen aren't supporting it, why are they not supporting wanting to take care of America's fallen? Especially as we're coming up on our semi-quincentennial, or
Indeed.
America's 250 as the U.S. government is branding it.
Indeed. Well, America does love her veterans, and that's our job. We're here to remind her about that, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, Chris. We're proud of you. We're proud of what George is doing. We're proud of Tony's legacy, and you have our word that we'll continue to do that and push it forward.
I think I just want to one caveat here, right? Something you just said that I think is very important is the word legacy, right? It's not about the loss now. Now it's about building the legacy of these fallen soldiers, right? The loss happens, but how do we turn that loss into legacy? And that's what we're working on right now.
Yeah,
so
indeed.
It is really transitioning it from loss to legacy.
Indeed. Well, thank you, brother. We appreciate you having you on. It's important work you're doing, and I know that with our ability to push it out, and with your verve and George leading the charge, I think you're going to do just fine. You got some amazing support already, and we're going to continue to help push that forward.
Brother, I appreciate everything. I appreciate the opportunity, and also appreciate you reaching out to bring the organization onto your podcast. It means a lot, and we're very grateful.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. So there you have it, America. Chris Pollitzer, the Chief Strategy Officer at Honor and Remember. We are going to continue to push this effort forward, Chris, and we're happy to have you on today. And we will see you all next time on VetSum.